Hey Gurus, welcome to this mission on values. We're going to be setting the compass that keeps us on track. So all of the recent work has been about beliefs, and as you've already seen, they pretty much govern every aspect of how we experience life. You've seen that for yourself firsthand. We've learned the difference between intellectual and functional beliefs, these ideas that we hold, and yet what we actually really do out in the world is often really, really different. And we've also seen how our beliefs both inform and are informed by our roles, right? So, you have a certain set of beliefs, but you go, as soon as you switch your, change hats and you become mother or father versus brother or sister or entrepreneur, you've seen how the beliefs can shift, okay? So they're not these things that are set in stone, and because of that, they can often cause us some real challenges in deciding what we're supposed to do, when we're supposed to do it, how we're supposed to do it, and ultimately how we're supposed to stay on course. In many respects, you can consider beliefs in general to be our kind of overview of how we see the world and our place within it. But like I say, there's always that challenge that we've got the overview, and yet depending upon which hat we wear, depending on whether we're going to be, today we're going to be, in my case, whether I'm going to be father, son, husband, lover, kind of entrepreneur, coach, whatever I'm going to be, it can inform and change the way I'm seeing the kind of the lie of the land. So the best analogy for beliefs generally is that of a map. Maps are not the terrain themselves, clearly, right? But they're a representation of the terrain, and that's really what beliefs are. They are not life, but they're a kind of representation of how you see life in general. And it can be a really, really valuable thing, but you can't navigate just on a map, or at least not usually, unless the terrain is really obvious. Like if you're going down a highway and you know where you are on that map, and you're going to take the next exit, you can usually see that on the map. But if you've got more complex terrain to cross, kind of if you're lost in the wilderness and you're not really sure where you are, just having the map by itself is going to be really, really difficult to use. So maps are great because they provide that sense of the overall lie of the land, but in order to be effective, we need to understand where we are relative to the features on the map, right? That's the very first part of navigation. Navigation part one is have a map. Navigation part two is to say, where am I, right? Because otherwise it's a pointless thing. And that's where the roles and the labels come in. That's where we get to say, okay, well, relative to my belief about being an entrepreneur, and relative to my belief about being a parent or a husband or an entrepreneur, whatever it happens to be, this is where I am on the map right now, which is cool, right? So now we understand the terrain, we understand our starting point or our current location, but in order to get from where we are right now, whatever the current situation and circumstance of our life, to where we really want to end up, and that can be our goals, our vision, our greater purpose. We need something else. What we really need is a compass. And the purpose of a compass is to enable us to follow a bearing, a heading, a direction that takes us from where we are to where we most want to go, right? So one of the great things about a compass, you pick up the compass, you've got this bearing, and you know what's due north and south, east, and west, right? You're able to know where you are and where directions are relative to your position. And that changes everything. That changes absolutely everything. And before we had compasses, we had stars, right? And so we'd navigate by the stars, but it was exactly the same purpose, which was to say, can we kind of set ourselves up some kind of fixed point, some fixed direction that we're heading in, so we don't end up walking around in circles. So that's really the purpose of a compass. And so within the context of our lives and the work we're doing as gurus, that compass is our values. Okay? The compass is our values. Now, values are really nothing more, but nothing less either than a specialized set of beliefs that invite us to decide who and how we're going to be while we're navigating the terrain of our lives. Right? So, yeah, you might change your role slightly and your behaviors ever so slightly because you are now operating in father role, or you are now operating in husband role, and you are now operating in wife role, or whatever it happens to be, right? Obviously the beliefs and the roles inform things, but what the values allow us to do is to maintain this kind of sense of consistency. So in a way, values are simply the beliefs that we value above and beyond all the others, right? We value them, and that's why they're called values, because they are more valuable to us. Okay, they're the things that we got all of these beliefs in our life, but our values are the beliefs that we actually place to the forefront of everything. Okay, and it's ultimately the declaration of this is who I'm going to be and this is how I'm going to show up in life while I'm navigating all of that other terrain, whilst I'm performing those roles, whilst I'm doing all this other stuff. Here is who I'm still going to be throughout all of it. So what they really allow us to do is live out our roles and our labels with a sense of consistency of being that creates like a set of standards for how we're going to show up in the world while we're being each one of our roles. That's really what we're talking about here, right? Consistency, commitment, standards, and actually like allowing us to kind of sew in this like core thread that runs through everything. So instead of disparate, disconnected roles that seemingly have their own rules, what values allow us to do is to create this core theme that runs through how we address and perform literally every single role and how we approach every single goal, challenge, or problem. Because again, you can see that if you are constantly changing, if you're constantly changing your approach to how you're showing up, you're never going to be able to get to this point where you have a consistency of self. And when I say consistency, what I'm really talking about is certainty. So confidence comes from certainty. All right. So kind of what we're really talking about here is a way to be certain that whilst all of the terrain may change all the time, and whilst you may, kind of change hats from time to time in and out of your different roles and all the rest of it, that you are certain about who and how you're going to be while all that's going on. Okay, so now instead of life throwing us fastballs, and it's going to continue to throw us fastballs, but instead of us changing the rules every time and trying to figure it out, it's like, all right, well, I know who I am and how I need to be, and yeah, all this other cool stuff is going on around me, or maybe not so cool stuff, but I have this kind of set of extra beliefs, of extra valuable beliefs, values, that are going to guide me back on track. So the process is really, really simple. Okay, and I'm gonna trust that most people in Guru have actually been through a values process already, and they're operating from strong values. But please, 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 even if you're really happy with the ones you've got, even if you love the ones you've got, go through this process anyway, because all it's going to do is going to reinforce the ones you've got and add some extra layers of certainty and some extra layers of clarity and some extra layers of potency around the values that you've already got. Because values should really be things that not just guide and inform, but magnify, multiply, and exponentialize your efforts. Like when you work through your values, things happen faster, they happen easier, they happen more enjoyably. When you end up in the shit, your values get you out of the shit quicker, and you don't stay in there anywhere near as long. Okay? And if that hasn't been your experience of values up to now, then that's even more of a reason for you to do this work. Regardless, kind of dig in and do the work, even if you're happy with what you've got. So the first part is to identify 25 common values from the values list that I'm going to show you in a second. Or you can add your own words if those words are more meaningful. So I'm going to share with you a list now. You've got a whole bunch here. Abundance, acceptance, accountability. I'm not going to read them all. There's tons there, right? But go through the list and just circle or underline the 25 that feel most meaningful to you. 25. And now, if maybe a few of them, maybe 10, 15, 20 of them even are good words for you, but maybe there's a word that is more meaningful to you that's not on there. Or maybe none of these are phrases or words that you personally would choose. That's fine. You're not limited to the list. I'm just adding the list because a lot of people often say like they get kind of lost down the navel-gazing kind of rabbit hole, so to speak, and they kind of can't think of all the words. I'm just providing these as a baseline for you to start the exploration. But absolutely, definitely, use your own words if you've got words that are more meaningful than this, right? But what I'm asking for is for you to come up with 25 different words or different kind of word combinations here, because you've got some here like making a difference or open-mindedness, right? So 25 in total of the most meaningful words or mini phrases, okay? From those 25 values, select the 10 that are most resonant. So this is where you are being asked to kind of really say, okay, there's 25 things in the list there that all seem really valuable to me. Now I'm being asked to select 10 that are more valuable than all of the others put together, right? Kind of these are the way to think about it is if you were to live your life doing these 10 things, in your heart, in your soul, you really believe that if I did these, if I did just these 10 things, things would be absolutely stunningly amazing. Okay, my life would kind of really sort itself out and get back into alignment, right? So select the 10 that are most resonant and meaningful to you. And then use the define, refine, and align approach to explain what the values actually mean to you. So I know there's 10 there, but go through define, refine, and align. And again, this isn't a process of deep navel gazing. Like, you already know, as you read those words, you already know what they mean to you. So go through them. What's your definition of each word? What's your refinement? And what, like, definition? What is it? Refinement? What is it not? Alignment? What would I be doing if I were living it? Okay. Go through the process with those 10 and explain specifically what the values actually mean to you. Okay. Once you have 10 defined, choose the 3 that have the most meaning and create the greatest sense of potential impact and aspiration for you. Because values are really aspirational. Like, it would be lovely, it would be beautiful, it would be awesome if we could live our values all the time. But very often, we slip out of our values every now and then, or we're called to make hard decisions, and sometimes those hard decisions might pull us out. So they're aspirational. Like, this is who I want to be. If I would be so happy with myself if I could experience myself living more and more and more of my days as this person who saw life through these things, right? So you're going to we're going to go from 25 to 10 that get defined, refined, and aligned, and then you're going to choose the 3 that have the most meaning to you, right? That have the greatest sense of potential in terms of what you think, the impact would be on your life if you were to apply that, if you were to live according to those 3. So it might seem like a kind of around the houses way of arriving at 3 values, right? You go for 25, define 10, and then out of 10 only pick 3. And you might be tempted to just shortcut and just go, oh, let me just pick the 3, right? Kind of, it will save me time. There's a lot of value. There's a hell of a lot of value in defining, refining, and aligning all 10, because that's going to become really valuable in the next stage of the exercise, right? But it's important, really, that values aren't just words to you. They're not just kind of these 3 things that you've plucked out of thin air and that you kind of sort of like, and they sound really good, and they sound really great when you kind of put them in your sign-off signatures on posts and all that kind of stuff. These have to be extremely valuable to you, as the word values defines, right? They have to be really valuable. So a way to think about it is, we're sticking with the compass analogy. They need to be highly magnetized, and they have to be meaningful in order for them to have true value in keeping you on course. Imagine you've compromised the value. Remember, the job isn't to always live the value. That's the aspiration. That's the dream. That's it. If we were perfect, enlightened human beings, we would always live it. The job of the compass, the main time when you pull the compass out, is when you're planning the journey and when you suspect that you may be off course. Right? I can promise you, as a former soldier, we didn't walk along with our compasses out, like staying on course step by. Sometimes we did, but most of our operations and exercises, we didn't do that. We'd kind of get a rough route planned out, we'd follow the route, we'd realise that we were slightly off course, then we'd pull the compass back out and go, okay, we need to go over there to get back on course. And that's really the value of values, okay? It's to bring you back on course when you're going off. And that's it. So that's as far as I want you to take the exercise. 25, 10, define, refine, align, pick 3 out of the 10, right? And that's as far as this first part goes. Then I'll introduce you to part 2. We'll go into it a little bit more deeply and kind of get these words a little bit more magnetic, a little bit more powerful, so that they really do some amazing work for you. But that's as far as this exercise goes. So if you've got any questions, fire them away. If not, get to it. Take care.